Want to know who we are? Let's start here. We do this, that, and we make all of these. We're here to connect and power just about everything around you. We help you save energy. We're not trying to save the world, but we are making the most of our energy and resources and making access to energy and digital basic human rights. Life is on.
So it has been quite a year for manufacturers. What are some of the weak spots in existing or legacy control systems that have become more pronounced during the pandemic? John, I'm going to turn to you first on this one.
Thank you very much, Christina. And first, I'd like to start by thanking our hosts for inviting me. It's been an honor for me to be asked to be speaking on this panel together. When it comes to industrial control systems and aspects of the pandemic that have made their issues more pronounced, if you will, we're seeing that, one of the most significant things that's happened as part of this is that, people have been separated. People have either been removed from the places of point of work that they've been able to be at in the past, or needed to be physically separated from each other. And there's been a lot of strict restrictions inside of control networks, the specific points where they would have those points of access, whether it's an HMI or a SCADA position or another one there. But very often those things are very much restricted to be behind those firewalls for security reasons that are very solid. But if suddenly you can't get the people to those points of work, how do you facilitate those remote operations with separated people?
Yeah, I would add, to John's points, I'd say, users of existing and legacy control systems really lack or have limited remote visibility and control to production operations, as certainly being one of the key weak spots, I believe. As well, hardware and software or just general service support's been difficult. To get support on industrial control systems during the pandemic, with legacy systems presenting really an extended challenge, if you will, because many professionals are working from home, have travel restrictions, and there's that hesitation, to travel outside of their social bubble. So they may not want to go to site to try to do a deep dive to resolve some control system issues.
Christian, what are you seeing during the pandemic?
Well, actually, as John and Vic said, the pandemic makes it very difficult for on-site servicing. So if we're not able to reach their control systems remotely through VPNs, well, it puts a lot of pressure on maintaining and improving those systems. One other thing we found is, we all know with the pandemic, some parts became less and less available. So for the legacy parts, they are even less available. So that puts a lot of pressure. So that's what we found. Those were the weak spot that this pandemic got us to find.
Sanjit, how about you? What weak spots have you noticed?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would echo what everyone else said, and I'd add to that is I think the readiness for many of customers and plants today in terms of connected devices. I think we all talk about digital transformation, and I think some customers and some plants have been fast to adopt, and others have not. So I think one of the biggest weak spots we've seen is the lack of connected devices or remote connected devices within plants, where I think we all have the intention to want to connect remotely and have data accessibility and keep machinery going. But I think as many plants look back at the assets, they weren't connected ready or did not have connected results. So to me, that was a big weak spot. And part of that was having actually aged equipment inside of the plants.
So, I mean, maybe you could follow up with that on an application example of a control system that maybe performed well during the pandemic that somebody had already installed and allowed one of your clients to respond in an agile way.
So I think in general, Christina, I think automation or automated processes was a godsend for many manufacturing facilities and customers. I think we all know that during the initial stages of the pandemic or the initial lockdown, many facilities were burdened. We're not having the labor force to keep machinery going. And I think this is where we saw that automation played a big part in allowing a lot of customers to keep machinery going at a reduced labor force, because there was a lot of automated processes. So I think that was key. And I think from an applications perspective, if I look back specifically at PLCs, HMIs, and SCADA, I think these automated devices allowed manufacturers to keep machinery going, and it also allowed a greater level of flexibility. So typically to the manufacturers that pivoted their machines, to help our great nation in terms of converting production lines to become mass manufacturing machines, I think that level of flexibility by having automation in place allowed that level of fast pivoting. So I think from an application perspective, I think automation is definitely something where people now see the benefit if they haven't seen it before, because we realize how quick we can use it to pivot and to deal with crisis.
Mm-hmm. I imagine the rest of you have seen that as well, that sort of automation has become a lot more important to clients, especially towards the last half of the year, as people are looking to 2021. Yeah,
and Christina, I would add to that really the ease of in newer control systems, the ease of remote SCADA and HMI visibility really has enabled the control professionals to support manufacturing systems throughout this difficult period. Total access to the operations from anywhere at any time, I think is paramount to supporting the operation. For example, today, most of the parameters from a production system can be viewed on a cell phone, and it doesn't matter where you are. You have that visibility, and you can control what they can and cannot see and do from a simple cell phone. So from that aspect, I think technology has served manufacturers well in this pandemic.
Yeah, I would back up what Vic says there, because I mentioned what was one of our biggest challenges with being remote operations. It wasn't because technology wasn't there to support it, or they say necessity is the mother of invention. The capability has been there, but a lot of the times the necessity wasn't there. Well, I have local staff. I don't need to do a lot of these remote capabilities. For a lot of our customers, when it came time that now it was necessity, achieving that wasn't a huge hurdle, right? It was just a matter of deciding that was something you needed to do.
I mean, how then, for a company that maybe didn't have these systems in place, how can remote controlled software or monitoring be used to tap into an ICS? I mean, on a sort of a brass tacks level, John.
We're seeing this in a variety of forms, right? And so whether it's remote operations or if it's facilitating overall organizational capability. And one of the things that we see in an emerging space is what I refer to as unified operations. By pushing the data up into the organization, what types of decisions can be made that will facilitate optimizations and other types of capabilities, facilitate other level business decisions. Sometimes I refer to this as IT and OT convergence, and that term sometimes can confuse people, because a lot of times when people say IT and OT convergence, they talk about organizational structures, who reports to who. But when you start taking the information that sits in IT with the information that sits in OT and combine them together, which rarely happens behind those control networks, so you kind of have to move it remote and get it outside and get into those areas. The types of decisions that you're making, the efficiencies we're seeing, major manufacturers getting millions of dollars of improvements in terms of their bottom line by being able to coordinate as an organization as opposed to operating in independent silos.